Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. Tottenham, we're back in the big time. You wouldn't know it based on that Champions League draw, but we are back in the big time. If you're with us for the very, very first time, you can find us. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're on X, we're on Facebook, and of course, we're on Blue Sky too. We are bringing you a team that is adaptable, that is as flexible as Thomas Frank. Jason, don't say a word. As we look back on what has now just taken place in terms of that Champions League draw, Spurs, of course, back on the big stage, back amongst the elite, helping us dissect that draw and what it means. I've got X's very own lovable friend and one of our own, Billie T, is back. Bill, lovely to have you here. You've got a busy few days ahead. Get some sleep.
Yes, very good to be back, my friend. I was told that Bodo and Frankfurt were easy on the route to the Europa League final, but we got them again in the Champions League, so I think that little venture takes a bit of a hit. Champions League team would be there, and Karabag in there, no less.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think when you get these draws, there are some that are, to some degree, frustrated that we haven't got more glamour-ties. And then there are some that are kind of relieved that we have avoided some of the bigger guns at this stage because there's a great opportunity for progression. So about progression, we were in that, of course, at the time. Well, it looks back now, 3.5 months ago from Bilbao, we had that wonderful, again, parade that took place. Jay's Pat, we were firmly in it. We had Jason belting out all kinds of songs, maybe not broadcastable now on this show, but back alongside me is Chatty Patty. Pat, how are you, mate? Love to be back alongside us here. A busy week ahead.
Yeah, it's lovely to be back, man. And like you said, Champions League, we're in the tie, we're there with the big boys. And like Billie T said, it's kind of debunked the myth last year that we had an easy run in to the finals, because a lot of the teams we played last year, lo and behold, they're in the Champions League. So it shows that the quality there wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. And yeah, looking forward to dissecting the ties with you guys, and let's see what everyone thinks in the comments as well. So spam the comments, smash the like, share this, and let's get cracking.
Patty, thank you so much. And one man that normally has to pick me up the ground on cup exits, I've been trying to pick him up off the ground on cup exits, given the last 10 years. I know he's gutted about the Super League, but listen, we've got a Champions League, really interesting draw ahead of us, where if Tottenham, as we keep on saying, back the manager, give him some additional tools to what he's got, Spurs have got a real good opportunity in progressing far in this Champions League. Jason McGovern is back. Jason, we spoke earlier before we started, and you said to me, if there's some glamour ties here, I'm looking forward to going home and away. Are you still looking forward to going home and away?
Yeah, like I said, if you're not going to win it, I wanted 8 glamour ties. I wanted Madrid's, I wanted Inter Milan's, I wanted, Benfica and all of that. But you're right, it feels like a simple draw. I agree with Patty. We've got a couple of regular foes. It's just a shame we haven't got Grimsby Town in the final.
Well, look, just to give everybody the background on that draw for those that would have missed it or unaware in terms of what Spurs have ended up with. So Tottenham now know their fate for the opening phase of the Champions League. They will be facing Borussia Dortmund, Villarreal, Slavia Prague and Copenhagen at home. And then they'll travel respectively to play Paris Saint-Germain, who is probably no doubt about it, they are the glamour side of this phase for Tottenham. They've got Eintracht Frankfurt in there. Again, a reunion with an old foe. Bodo Glimt also in there, and Monaco across the league phase in 8 matches. That stretches all the way into January. And Jason's very kindly given us, for those that are watching the show live, an illustration of how that does impact Tottenham's Premier League, FA Cup and League Cup schedule. So we'll be coming on to that in terms of understanding how that is going to affect the squad, affect the manager in terms of preparation and setup. Now, it is worth me putting out there that we are expecting the exact order and dates of these games to be announced in the coming days. And many will know, of course, we played PSG only a couple of months ago in that Super League final. We've had, obviously, experience of travelling to Frankfurt last season in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, as well as Bodo Glimt. So, as I mentioned, there's a number of teams there we are already quite familiar with. Bill, if I open with you, look, we know last season, the fact of the matter is that we didn't have the squad to compete on all 4 fronts. I just wonder for you, on the back of this draw in the Champions League, do you think there will be an expectancy based on the teams that have come out for Spurs to generally finish quite high up in that table? What do you think for you?
I think so, mate. I think if we can add a couple more players in the transfer window, we've got a real good chance of finishing, possibly looking towards the top 8 of the league, which would be an incredible position to be in, considering, we were a Europa League winner. We're not in pot 1 or pot 2. That would be an incredible position to find ourselves in. And then hopefully Jason would get one of his glamour ties in the next round, which would be brilliant. But I think that's a really, really good opportunity for us at the moment. I would worry in the past, taking times where we've had, in inverted commas, easier Champions League groups. I think there was a year under Pochettino when we had the likes of Leverkusen and Monaco, and we didn't manage to qualify from the groups. And then when we had Inter, Barca and Dortmund, we did, and stuff like that. So that's an interesting consideration. But I think we've got a real opportunity there to progress into the competition. Hopefully, get that top 8 finish would make a real difference to the next round.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit of a weird one, Pat, because I know, look, we all want to advance, we all want to go through, but at the same time, part of the fun of being in the Champions League is facing those big sides, those glamour sides, those glory nights under the lights at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Thoughts on the draw for you, Pat? Because I would say that's kind of a likeable draw in terms of your feeling. Could we?
It's a good draw on paper, but we have to remember and respect the teams that we're playing against. Every team here deserves to be there. There's no pushovers, there's no mugs. Even the teams that we haven't really watched, as in fans haven't watched yet, they're not going to be easy. So obviously you have to turn up with your A game. But I'm happy with the draw. I'm happy we've got some good teams in there. We've got some prestigious names. We've got your Champions League regulars. And then we've got a few new boys. And obviously us being a team that's kind of yo-yoed in the Champions League over recent years, we've come into it with some big pedigree this year, winning Europa League. So obviously we're going to be a scalp for some of the teams. And I'm excited to see how we do, obviously, with the new manager, new setup against some real prestigious teams. You look at Dortmund, they're regulars. PSG now, obviously, are pretty much the best team in Europe. Then you got your Frankfurts. They're a team that are pretty much there or thereabouts every year. And then obviously you look at the other teams and yeah, they may not have the pedigree on paper, but they're still good teams. Copenhagen are very good on their day. Monaco are a decent team. Obviously, we'll be saying hello to our old friend Eric Dyer when we go over there.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I think, I kind of differ from what I obviously understand what Jason's saying, but ultimately the aim is to get through to the next round. And like Billy said, if we can finish in the top 8, because when you look at some of the other teams like Chelsea, Arsenal and Liverpool, they've got a lot harder fixtures on paper.
Yep.
All we need to do is make sure we finish in the top 8. So primarily win all of our games. It allows us to have obviously a less, one less round of fixtures than, if we don't finish there. And then we go into it. And then obviously from there, whoever you get, you have to place and face them anyway to go through. But yeah, I'm very happy with that draw. I think it's a good day at the office for Tottenham Hotspur fans.
Yeah, I mean, Jace, look, I know you're one that doesn't like mockery of certain aspects of things. We have to remind people out there, people that maybe mocked Bodo Glimt in the Europa League. They got to the semi-finals. They're now in the Champions League. I mean, is it fair to say we have to take every team at face value? Because I think the worst thing you can do, and we've seen this in the past with Spurs, actually in the Champions League, if you underestimate any of these sides, you can come across, a cropper. Again, the Champions League is there for the best teams. And I think it's really important that we don't underestimate maybe some of these what will be seen as non-glamorized. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bodo's home record in Europe in any competition they've been in is excellent. Apart from when we went there, didn't they put 6 past Mourinho when he went there with Roma or something? And
yeah, that's right.
The likelihood is we all know the problems last year. The plastic pitch. It's not even a great plastic pitch, is it? It will be bitterly cold and those types of things. So of course, you're going to absolutely have to take every fixture seriously. You can't rotate like you can in the Carabao Cups and things like that. So the moment you show those teams a lack of respect is the day you get the bloody nose. And not being funny, we've had our bloody noses in Europe, haven't we? Losing to Murras. And I mean, Billy's right. When we got into the Champions League under Poch and that first group came up, when it was Monaco, Leverkusen and CSKA, we had a really poor campaign when we thought that's an easy group for the Champions League. It was the following year when we had Madrid that bring out the best of us. It's when we had Barcelona that brings out the best. So, yeah, for sure. There's no easy games in it. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think what's
the other good thing with the draw is that when you look at it, there's no 4 or 5 hour travels. We haven't got the team that's that knocked Celtic out last night, that's on the Chinese border. You haven't got that 7 or 8 hour flight to Karabakh and things like that. So, you know, when you look at it in that respect, it's quite a favourable draw as well.
Do you think, Bill, you know, when people are going to look at that draw there and see the teams that we're facing, maybe bar Paris Saint-Germain, to go maybe on the other end of the spectrum, there will be a thing that if we do give Thomas Frank the tools in the market and some additional tools, we've got a real good opportunity, as Pat says, of really progressing quite far. Do you think, hopefully, that will be the mentality, or we just can't rely on that?
No, I think that will be the mentality, to be honest, mate. I think, you know, if you're talking about 4 home games of Dortmund being the pot 1 home game, which is probably the easiest team in pot 1 and a team we've got a really good record over, Copenhagen, Villarreal and Slavia Prague at home, that's 4 very winnable home games. We'd be disappointed if we lost any of those home games, I would have thought. And we could even, you know, I'm sure we'll be aiming to get 4 wins. Not saying that's cut and dry. There's, you know, 4, any team that we're playing in the Champions League is decent, but after what it could have been, I think that's 4 very favourable home fixtures. And then the away ones, I think you've got PSG, which is a bit of a free hit. Obviously, no one's expecting us to go to Paris and win there. Especially after they'll be mid-season, really good. Bodo is a bit of an interesting one for me because it'll be right in the middle of winter now, rather than playing them in the, you know, in May time that we did last year. It's going to be freezing out there, so that might be interesting. And Monaco and Frankfurt again, 2 teams that we've had pretty good records with lately. So, yeah, I would look at that draw. I don't think we could have got a much better draw, to be honest, in terms of the favourability. But I would just hope that our mentality would see that as a thing where now I hope the players and Thomas Frank and the club look at this and think, actually, we've got a really good chance to get us in the Champions League knockouts. And once you're in the Champions League knockouts, as we've proven ourselves, anything can happen.
Agree. Pat, you know, this is going to be a first for Thomas Frank. We have to say this. You know, he's going to have to learn, you know, having to juggle European football during the middle of a campaign where his only experience of that came when he had 10 European qualifying games around a decade ago at Bromby. So we're going quite a long time ago. New experience with Thomas Frank. Do you think what will help him, Pat, is the nature of the teams that he has been drawn against? Because like we said, bar Paris Saint-Germain, maybe it's wrong, me maybe thinking this, but a lot of those games will feel generally that they're winnable. And with the squad that we're going to amass and hopefully what we're going to have in place, I hope before the end of the transfer window, Thomas Frank will hopefully feel he's got a squad there that won't be frightened or afraid of going to the respective teams that we know in relation to away. You know, Villarreal, not an easy place to go, but when you look at, Frankfurt, not an easy place to go, but again, last season, we achieved a result there. Bodo, Glimt, the same. Maybe you'd argue Monaco would be one of the more tougher away ties. How do you think Frank is going to manage that adaptation of juggling European football and then coming back to Premier League football and again, vice versa, with, of course, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, also in there, Pat?
You know what? The litmus test for me, and it's the same thing I applied to Ange Postecoglou when he was appointed, is how a manager who's obviously at a smaller club, you know, in inverted commas, does when they play a bigger club. And when I look at Thomas Frank's record, home and away, against some of the big boys, he's done more than okay. Like with Brentford, they went to Man City and beat them. So I look at Thomas Frank and I'm not worried about him away at a tough team in Europe because naturally he's done that with a lesser team and he's been more than capable. Obviously, like Jason's going to allude to and what Jason said is it gets a bit trickier when you're playing Tuesday, Saturday or Wednesday, Sunday. Then it's how do you rotate? How do you protect the players? How do you get the best out of them after a tough Champions League away fixture, so to speak? And then you got a tough, you know, big 6 or top 8 away fixture on the Sunday. That's where we'll see. That's where we haven't seen Thomas Frank yet because Brentford haven't been in Europe battling at the top. But I'm not worried about him against the bigger teams or bigger teams on paper because when he's been at Brentford for the last 4 or 5 years, he's shown he's more than capable. So I'm not too worried. Thomas Frank is an intelligent guy. We've seen that against Man City away. He's more than capable and he'll get the best out of the players. And like Billy says, as long as the guys, you know, apply themselves, don't disrespect the opposition and play to their strengths, I think we'll be more than okay. I think that fixture has done us the world of good. Now, ideally, if we can get a couple more in, we'll be more than pretty much we'll have what we need going into the, you know, the rest of the season.
Coming over to you, Jace. You know, I know you've very kindly drawn up for us here this an all-in-one kind of fixture list. For those that are watching the show live, Jason's kind of given us here a real good insight into between now and the end of January, just what Spurs have got coming in terms of not only Premier League games, Carabao Cup, FA Cup involvement, and of course then you add in the Champions League match days. I think what would scream out to many, Jaces, when we already knew for November that was going to be tough. Games against United, Chelsea, Arsenal. When you add in, a potential, and it is only potential at this stage, you've got a Carabao Cup fourth round tie in there. You've then got a Champions League game after that as well. And then that's before home games against United, and then maybe a trip to Arsenal. Then it's then followed swiftly by another European match day after that international break. That is, of course, if these fixtures are the way they are, and there is no subjects of change on here. It already shows you, Jace, that Thomas Frank, we talk about juggling, he's going to have to juggle because this will be very unique. And for him, it's a first having to do this.
Yeah, it's a massive one for him. And it's not that I'm saying he can't do it, but he's never had to do it. So you don't know how he'll react. And we know our squad isn't where we want it to be at the moment. When you look at some of the gaps in the squad. So, but I mean, in fairness, when you're talking about a 3-month period or a 4-month qualification period, and you're talking about the number of games you're playing, you will get a stretch like that at some stage. A couple of years ago, didn't we? We finished the season, if you remember, with, what was it, Chelsea away, Liverpool away, Newcastle away, Arsenal home, Man City home. So you will get a run of games like that. When you look at the Champions League fixtures, on the Premier League game after the Champions League fixture, we only played 2 of the traditional big 6 on the back of a Champions League fixture, and both of those are the 2 Manchesters at home. So do you include Man United as a big 6 now? Really? So, from that point of view, the fixtures you look at, but they're to me, I'd kind of sooner have the big teams on the back of a Champions League week when they've also had a Champions League week. And without being defeatist, if we have Chelsea away on the back of it and we lose, well, don't we always lose to Chelsea away? But the key points for us to get, if we look to target a top 6, top 5, top 4 place, is to make sure that we're fresh, going to Brighton, going to Wolves, playing Fulham, playing Brentford. They're the ones that the key to us to getting 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. So I'd actually sooner have, on the back of a Champions League week, I'd sooner have Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, have the whole lot. So that they've got the same disadvantage, because when we're in the Champions League weeks, Brentford have got 7 days to prepare for it. Brighton have got 7 days to prepare for it. Fulham have got 7 days to prepare for it. So, they're nicely rested, and that makes those fixtures just that little bit harder than they otherwise would be.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously with the situation with the fixtures, it's hard because a lot of these could be obviously subject to change. So it's really hard to kind of try and plan ahead at this stage already. But Bill, when we take a look already, like Jason has very kindly put together for us here, this initial set of fixtures, I'm looking at January. January as well is a very tough month for Spurs. We go into that, Man City, and we can see this Man United, Newcastle and Arsenal. And I think when you add into that as well, Champions League will be included in that period. And please God, we get there as well, a potential Carabao Cup semi-final days after a Champions League fixture, which I think would be match day 8, bearing in mind these fixtures remain the same. How do you think, Bill, Frank's going to manage this? Again, first time having to juggle such an extreme of Premier League, European football. And then when you add into that as well, hopefully we're there, Carabao Cup, FA Cup. This is going to be a real test of the squad, isn't it? And I think it goes back to what you're saying. The squad's going to need to be highly equipped and have additions to manage this period.
Yeah, and I would say if we don't sign anyone and the window closes without any signings coming in, I'd say we would be significantly underprepared for that sort of run of games. And let's not forget at the beginning of the season, and when Ange was sacked, we were told the reason why Ange was sacked because we want to compete on all fronts. We were then told that Thomas Frank was hired to compete on all fronts. So now it's time for the board to give us a squad that can compete on all fronts. I'd be amazed. Thomas Frank's start so far this season, I think he's shown what an astute manager he is already. He's starting to show great signs, really encouraging signs. But he's not a miracle worker. And I don't think any manager, if you had Pep Guardiola managing Tottenham and a small squad doing that run of games, it's impossible. And we saw, obviously you do get some seasoned Champions League teams like Man City and Liverpool, Arsenal. They've got very deep squads, those teams, which is why they can sort of go deep into this competition and maintain a league run as well. You could look at the likes of Aston Villa and Newcastle, who both really struggled in the league and just various different Champions League runs in the last couple of years, it can be a massive hamper. So I think we've got to go and sign 2-3 players. I think if we sign one player, that's still not enough. I would look to be signing 2 or 3 players to really give us a chance of being able to compete in those competitions, because, I think we've got a really, really good chance of that draw of progressing. Yeah. So it'd be a shame to waste it.
And just to you, Bill, do you think now, I mentioned this earlier, because of the nature of the teams we're playing, and look, I said to Jason there, we can't underestimate anyone. But by the fact, when you look at the opportunity we've got presented ahead of us now, the start we've made under Frank, already showing what we can do away at the likes of Man City, surely we'd be foolish to not take, this is Tottenham, we'd be foolish to not take advantage of this opportunity that presents itself, because we've got a real genuine chance now, when you look at that opening phase of games we have in the Champions League, if the manager is given that sufficient backing in these days ahead, we've got a wonderful chance here, Bill, of advancing to the next stage. And again, we know Tottenham won a 17th place team, but it just shows you how football can turn around so fast that already you're thinking to yourself, we can already make the next phase, providing he gets that backing, Bill.
We do, mate. I think you can look at it in 2 ways. And obviously, you can't negate the fact that you can't underestimate teams in the Champions League, but that draw could have been so much tougher. So much tougher. When we're looking through those pot 1, pot 2 teams, even teams like, there's at one stage where we could have got Villarreal or Atletico Madrid, and we ended up with Villarreal. That would have been a much more difficult tie if we'd got Atletico Madrid. We've got a real opportunity here, and I think any fan at the moment, the way that we played our opening 3 games, the way that we took PSG to penalties, and we're unlucky not to win it, barring a last-minute collapse, you've got to be excited about our start of the season so far, and I really, really hope we can turn this excitement and we can turn this sort of what will hopefully be another fantastic manager into something meaningful. And to do that, we've got to give him more players.
Listen, we are going to squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We have got over 10,500 of you that are watching us live. Thank you ever so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. It is a show focused primarily on the Champions League. We are back in the big time. We are acutely aware that Spurs, at the timing of this show, are in talks for a player. Given what we've gone through over the last 5-6 weeks, I think it'd be remiss at this stage to get too excited, but we do know the club are in talks for Xavi Simons. We'll give a short update very soon as to where they are with that, but it does look like, don't want to put the knockers on it, are we making progression? We'll see. But look, Jace, before I do ask to come round to you, Pat, gotta say, he's back formally on YouTube now. He's back providing regular content. Please, like I say, if you can make sure you're going to check Pat out, Patrick Tyrant, all of course his name, on YouTube. Please make sure you go and go and subscribe. Are you promising, Pat, you are putting out regular content? Is that a promise?
100%, because so many people kept saying it to me over the last 2 years, put content out on your own channel. We love what you do, blah, blah, blah. And my heart wasn't really in it. So I did 1 or 2 videos, and I checked, and before I uploaded a video last week, my last post before that was a year ago. So yeah, I've already put out 3 videos on my channel, regular content on there. Please subscribe, like my videos. It'll help me immensely. It's just Patrick Tyrant, PatrickTyrant. And yeah, I'd love it if you guys subscribe, like, share, and all the good stuff you do over here. So yeah, thank you for the shout out, Ricky, and lots more good content to come. All short 10-minute clips. I'm just keeping it light and fun to begin with. CPIT, so Chatty Patty and 10, and I'll pretty much cover games, updates, the Champions League draw, little bits and bobs here or there. Just keep it fun, short, sharp, sweet, and cute.
Pat, you're a star. Jace will be with us for a lot of the season. I know Jace was saying to me, Rick, I was hoping to get away for some of these glamour ties in the Champions League. He was going to go to Italy, he was going to go to Spain, he was going to go to Portugal. But Bodo Glimt, Jace.
The best one was Monaco, and I can't afford it. So that'll be more than 4 weeks in Thailand. And I know which one of the 2 I'm taking over those 2. But no, PSG will be. Yeah. PSG's obviously the glamour. It's just a shame we played them a couple of weeks ago, and despite my real anger at that Super Cup collapse, I tell you what, I'd bite your hand off for a 2-2 draw when we go and play them when they're properly up and running. But the other thing when you, because you haven't got the dates of the fixtures, where you can, in an ideal world, you get PSG away match day 8, where they've already qualified, and then they may well squad rotate or something like that, and you don't quite have to meet the full force of them. So that's the other thing that you've got to take into account. And don't forget, between match day 7s and match day 8s, is in the January transfer window, when you can start adding players or changing players from your squad. So that also plays into effects for the latter of the match stages. But you know, you in an ideal world, you don't want PSG away match day 3 or 4. That's for sure.
No, you certainly don't. And I think, again, when you're looking at those teams that we've got there, I know we keep saying this. I know, again, it's very early days because, again, we are really reliant in terms of ensuring this squad is going to be sufficiently improved in these final days of the window. There is a massive, massive opportunity ahead of us here that I keep on stressing for Spurs to really, really, you know, have a good tilt at getting as far as they can in this competition. You know, again, this club have got to the quarterfinals. They've got to the semi-finals. They've got to a final. You know, I think, again, we shouldn't underestimate what Spurs can do and our ability, like we saw against Man City, over a one-off game to beat teams. And I think, again, we know with Thomas Frank, there's going to be a clear system in place for each of these games. He'll treat everyone differently. And I think what will give the confidence to the team, Bill, do you think as well, we've got a team of winners. You know, this is a team that have experience winning. How much do you think this will give them confidence, Bill, when it comes to, I know, again, different type of European competition, but again, we've been there. We've gone away to the likes, as we know, of Frankfurt. We've played Bodo, teams that we're familiar with. This should give us extreme confidence, right, Bill?
Yeah, it should do, mate. And especially with, you know, Romero being captain now, a real winner. I think he will look to lead the team on in that regard. Obviously, Sonny, our departed captain, got to lift the trophy, but now we're handing it in the reins to someone who's, you know, won the World Cup before. He's won 3 international tournaments, man of the match in plenty of those finals too, man of the match in the Europa League final, player of the Europa League. So we've got a real winner as our captain, and I really hope that can transpire into the Champions League. And I think, you know, for players, I think this is like the pinnacle of their career, isn't it, playing the Champions League? You know, it's what they all want to be doing. So I think this is the next stage for the squad now. I think the only difference between that and last season, when they kind of had that siege mentality, they're going to go just focus on the Europa League and try and win every Europa League game. This time they'll probably be juggling it with another full Premier League season, we imagine. So it'll be slightly different to that. They kind of put all their eggs in the Europa League basket, allegedly, anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how they juggle that. But I think these players will be really up for it. And I think, you know, new signings like Kudus as well. It's a big option. I don't think, obviously, he hasn't played in the Champions League since his Ajax days. You know, it's a real chance to go and show that he's a superstar now, and become sort of a Son level player would be brilliant.
Bill, just to ask you, we know, of course, there is plans ahead for the protest at the weekend. Do you think, when you're looking at now what Tottenham have got ahead of them, you know, again, Premier League-wise, Champions League-wise, do you think there now needs to be an emphasis on really trying to get feet on the ground with supporters to emphasise this could be such an exciting season ahead if the board now decide to back Thomas Frank and also back this squad? You know, this is a real genuine opportunity here that if sufficient backing is given to the manager and the tools are outlined to him, this could be such a big season. Is that the hope that, you know, we want fans to recognise that from a change for Spurs perspective? I know, again, you would never be a person that speaks for everybody, but I know the person you are, we all want the club to be successful. The reality is this could be such a successful season for Tottenham if the backing is there, right, Bill?
My opinion is that Champions League draw has made this window even more important, because we've now got a real opportunity to present ourselves to get into knockout Champions League. And obviously, depending on the way that the draw would come, it might have been, you know, we might have been playing the likes of Real Madrid, you know, Barcelona, all the top teams in Europe, but without much of a shot of getting into the top and progressing. But this time we've got a real shot. So I think it's actually an indicator, a catalyst to put even more pressure on the board to deliver some signings to Thomas Frank. So I hope people do join us at the protest on Saturday. I know that, you know, we've had a lot of support for this protest. And this protest is directly in line with creating pressure on the board to deliver Thomas Frank transfers. It's not. There's no other reason for protest other than that. And we hope now that we've got a really exciting start to the season. We've got a great manager, great squad so far. We need to add some more players though. So I think this draw is an even bigger catalyst to get those numbers on Saturday. And thank you for everyone that supported it.
Bill, thank you so much. Jason, if I can just zoom back round to you, I think what's quite interesting is that many might not know about the restrictions that come when it comes to the actual squad and availability in the Champions League. Therefore, you can maybe talk us through, for listeners on audio, the real emphasis, if you can see it on the screen there, how Champions League and the draw itself and the magnitude of how it all comes together does impact us when it comes to squad availability.
Yeah, I mean, currently we've got a full squad for the Champions League. So, you know, whoever we sign doesn't add to what we've got to that squad. It replaces somebody in that squad. So that's the key thing. You're not adding squad depth for the Champions League. You're just replacing it. But if you look at that, Yves Bissouma, for instance, at the moment would be in. So if we get the signing over the line that you'll talk about later on by some miracle, you feel like he'll replace Bissouma, and we all think that Bissouma will leave the club. But you've still got Odebear in there, you've still got Archie Grays in there, you've still got Ben Davis in there. So, like I say, whoever you sign can only replace those players. They can't actually add to them. So that's the key thing. And when you look at that, with Brandon Austin and Dane Scarlett as our only club homegrowns, that effectively means you're 4 places short in your squad. And like I said, when you think Arsenal can have Lewis Skelly, they can have Saka, they can have, who's the other one? Nwaneri in the squad. That gives them a huge advantage in getting a deep squad in the Champions League. Dowman, funny enough, they can't even register for the Champions League because he's too young. You can't register a 15-year-old in the squad. But it's important that we remember that we're so well stocked with players, and that doesn't include Draguzin and Dejan Kulusevski and that. So you will have the problem later in the season when you've got to start adding Kulusevski to that squad, that there's another one that's got to come out. But like I say, let's get this first period to December over with and get a proper squad involved for that Champions League campaign.
It's fair to say, Jason, now you've said this to me, it's complicated, right? It's not easy having to make these adjustments.
No, of course not. You have to be aware of your club homegrowns. You've got to have 4 homegrowns. You've got to have you've got to have 2 goalkeepers. So, I mean, if you looked at that squad and wanted to completely create a free space, you'd be tempted to say, right, we'll have to leave Kinski out and go with Brandon Austin as the backup goalkeeper and create a space that way. So, but none of us would want Brandon Austin to be our backup goalkeeper for a Champions League campaign. So, like I say, when you look at it, Yves Bissouma, Odebear, Archie Gray are probably the 3 most vulnerable names to take out of that squad if we bring 1 or 2 signings over the line.
Yeah, again, it's going to be fascinating as to how that does play out. I mean, look, we know out there that, again, when we switch back to the actual respective fixtures, which, again, Jason's very kindly created for us here, for our listeners and audio, that when we're looking towards maybe the, end, I'd say, of December, beginning of Jan as well, we know there's a potential FA Cup 4th round tie that slots in, which has also an impact on the Champions League knockout phase playoffs first leg to squeeze in, where we've got, I think, games potentially, and again, this might be something to change, so we have to bear in mind on this. I think we could have sandwiched Newcastle and Arsenal in there. Now, in an ideal world, look, I think you would expect on the back of that draw that we've had, you'd be massively, massively disappointed if Tottenham don't finish in the top 8 and have to go to playoffs. I mean, Pat, do you think when you look at that respective opponents that we've got now before the draw would have taken place, ideally, when you've now seen what we've got ahead of us, you back us, wouldn't you, to finish ideally, hopefully you want to finish in that top 8. Is that fair?
Yeah, not hopefully. Obviously, I'm not here to be arrogant and big-headed, but there's no way we can say hopefully. We should back ourselves to finish in the top 8. This is as kind a draw or fixture list you can take, bearing in mind that we're in the Champions League. And obviously, it's a group stage and we could have got drawn so many tougher opponents. Even when I look at Arsenal and Liverpool, who are group, pot 1 pretty much candidates, and they got much harder teams. Even Chelsea got Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Benfica, Atalanta. Those 4 alone is pretty much, and Ajax as well, and Napoli. So Chelsea got a lot harder draw than we did. Arsenal got Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, Club Brugge, Olympiacos, Slavia Prague. And then also, if you look at Liverpool, they got Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, PSV, Karabag, Inter Milan, Frankfurt, Marseille, and Ajax. So Liverpool got a really tough group. So, or tough, not group, because it's not groups anymore, but tough 8 teams. So I can't complain with that at all. Man City got Dortmund, Leverkusen, Napoli, Galatasaray, Real Madrid, Villarreal, Bodo, Glimt, and Monaco. So we definitely got the kindest fixture list when it comes to English teams. Newcastle, Barcelona, Benfica, PSV, Athletic Club, PSG, Leverkusen, Marseille, and Union SG. So, Ricky, we can't complain whatsoever. We should be finishing, and if you look at it, we should be finishing top 8 because all of those teams are going to take points off each other.
Yeah.
So if we do our business, finish in the top 8, and then obviously we can worry about who goes through and look at it from there. But can't complain whatsoever, man. That is a brilliant fixture list on paper.
Yeah, I have to say, Pat, a lot of people agreeing with you, and also with Billy, that the fact that given that draw, it makes even more sense now that the squad is vitally, I say vitally improved, but is vitally given the backing. It's reinforced. Yeah. It has to be reinforced now, given that you see this opportunity. It's massive for the football club. And also, Bill, just to bear that in mind here, Ronnie says here, comment here, you need 5 wins and a draw out of 8 to qualify for the top 8. I mean, you'd be backing ourselves, but wouldn't you, based on those fixtures? That's more than achievable. More than achievable.
I think the 4 home games are very favourable, in particular. I think we'd be looking to win those home games, at least 3 of them anyway. And you might, just get a draw out of sort of law of averages. But and then some of the away ties, we've already won in Frankfurt last season. We already won in Bodo last season. Monaco, I would expect us to go there looking for at least a point. So it's only really PSG that I look at on that list and thinking there's no chance we're going to get a result there. And then you've got 7 games to accumulate 5 wins and a draw. So yeah, very favourable. Obviously, the interesting thing about the Champions League draw is you could finish in the top 8 and then get an absolute stink of a draw. Because I think they were saying on the draw today that PSG went for a playoff this season. So, and then obviously they went on to win it. So there's no guarantee.
Bayern Munich,
and
Man City.
Yeah, and so you could finish in the top 8 and get an absolute horrific draw.
Yeah.
There you go. Who knows?
Yeah. It's hard to determine at this stage how that will work out, but certainly something to bear in mind. I just wonder, boys, whether on the back of that draw, does that change fan expectation? I mean, that's an interesting one. I mean, Jace, for you, I know, like we've already gone over loads of times. I know you want to see Europe given the prestige it is. For Frank, it's a new experience to some degree with having to, again, as we've said, be in that position where the board have made it very clear this season they are expecting the manager and the club to be fighting on all 4 fronts. So if you're going to be setting that expectation, you've got to give the backing to do that. Do you think on the back of that draw, does that change, in your opinion, fan expectation for you?
It might change fan expectation as to whether we can go through and qualify. I think when people look at the expectation supporters, they perhaps look back a little bit at last season and think, us in the Champions League, we could get mullered a lot. I mean, you spoke to me this morning and you said to me, the more tough ties we get, I don't want to see us get turned over. And I said, I don't fear getting turned over. I mean, when you looked at last year, and we can only, this format has only been in operation 1 year, so it's difficult to judge it. But you looked at last year and you see Lille and Aston Villa qualified automatically, and PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern, Milan, Benfica, Man City, Juve, those types of teams had to go through the playoff round. So is this Tottenham side as good as Lille or the Aston Villa side that went into the Champions League last year? Yeah, we'd probably favour ourselves to be as good as that. But like you say, you look at PSG, they finished 15th in the group stage. They only won half their games in that group stage. And then we obviously saw them take off. But let's not forget, they almost came a cropper against Villa in the playoff round. So, or was it the quarterfinal they played Villa? Can't remember. They played Man City in the playoff round, didn't they, last year?
I believe so, yes. That is right.
Was it Man City or something? I can't remember who they had. But so it just shows you, just get yourselves into a position at the start of it. Last year, there was 5 wins didn't guarantee you a top 8 place. There's 4 or 5 teams there that won 5 games, had to go through the playoff route. So, you look at it, you think we should get 5 wins, but you definitely want 6 wins. 100%. So the expectation is there, but we know that squad. And let's be honest, we've seen, even under Ange, Romero and Van der Ven's partnership is huge. You look at his record when those two were together, it's a totally different record to finish 17th and losing 22. So when you're playing those teams, you still want key players like those two on the pitch. You want your main front man on the pitch. You want Polina to be available, and So you're still dependent on that, and that's why this last 4 or 5 days, as Billy says, is absolutely crucial. And just for Billy, that protest on Saturday, Bill, none of that is to detract from anything on the pitch. Nothing's going on when the game's taking place.
No, of course
so,
not.
you can still show your disappointment at the board, and you don't have to be chanting stuff from minute 15 to 25 during the game. So, there's no negativity going onto the pitch during that game on Saturday. That's important to make that clear.
Yeah, and I think just like anyone, I don't speak for all the changes. Tottenham don't speak for all fans, but I think it'd be really hard not to be excited by our start to the season on the pitch. I think we've been really competent on the pitch, really competent off it, incompetent off it. Sorry, not competent, but that's for sure.
Yeah. There's gonna be something incompetent in there. We can't be totally competent. There's Tottenham, right? We can't be totally competent. Just to be very clear, we can't be. It's interesting, Jason. We bring up that graphic of last season's table. Pat, coming over to you, and we're just showing for listeners on audio how it weighed out last year. I mean, again, when you look at that table graphic of last year and where teams respectively finished in that first phase of the 8 games, you've got Man City there that were 22nd out of a 24 league table. I mean, Pat, again, is that kind of, it goes back to that point. We shouldn't be underestimating teams at this stage because, like Jason said there, you look at that table from last season, right? You've got teams like Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Milan, Paris Saint-Germain. These teams finish in the bottom half, Pat. They finish in the bottom half.
Yeah, I know, because football isn't played on paper, and we look at the fixture list and we say, oh yeah, we should be beating these guys. We should at least get a point here. We should be doing this, should be doing that. But we also have to remember that there are injuries, there's lack of form. Things can happen on the day. Football can be, that's why we love football. If it was just literally every team that should win wins, it would be boring and none of us would enjoy it and appreciate it. So there can be so many factors and variables into who wins a game, who loses it, how it's drawn. And also, we also have to remember as well that certain teams don't start all guns blazing. They warm up and they find their rhythm at the right time. And typically that's what Real Madrid have done. When Real Madrid won the Champions League back-to-back, 4 times in a row, they were nowhere near the best team during the league stages. But then they just warmed up at the right time and pretty much got stronger as the tournament, went on. And that was pretty much the same story for PSG last year. So it is all about when you play these teams as well. You have to catch them at the right time. So yes, on paper, we should be finishing in the top 8. But it won't be the end of the world if we don't. It just depends when we warm up as a team. But it's early days. I know we've only played 2 games. We've seen ourselves over 3 proper games. We look okay so far. If we keep our strong first 11, and obviously the subs coming off are who they are at the moment. But yeah, we just got to, being Tottenham fans, we have to hopefully get a bit of luck, a bit of a rub of the green. The football gods have to be on our side. Referee decisions hopefully won't be crazy. And we can then just warm up and just keep going. But yeah, I wouldn't fear this format. I'm looking forward to it. Even if we don't make the top 8, it's not the end of the world. There shouldn't be any meltdowns per se, depending on how it goes. And we just take it from there. But yeah, Ricky, it just depends on when teams warm up and when you catch them. Because, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Milan, PSG, those are top teams, and they almost didn't make it. So it does make it really fun as well. The great thing about this format is that teams can't just throw away a game or 2 like they were doing in the league state, in the group stages. Teams knew they're qualified, they put out weaker teams, even though you're not meant to. That's what they were doing. But now with this whole league format table, you have to play your strongest team all the time, because you need to make sure ideally you go through in the top 8.
Yeah, I just wonder, Jace, I know you despise the transfer window, and just so everybody knows, Jason will be here to close it. He will be here to close it. We're all going to be I will say, deadline day is going to be very, very fun. We're all going to be around at all different times, and we're all going to close it together. Quite literally, Jason will literally shut it. What do you think, Jay, squad needs now? You look at the opportunity we've got ahead of us now in terms of the group stage. I mean, even position, you don't have to give me names, but positional-wise, where do you think the gaps are in the squad that if we don't look to plug, this could prove a problem in terms of trying to battle on all 4 fronts? Where do you look at those key areas being we are severely short, in your opinion, at the moment?
Honestly, I would say every single area of the pitch. We have we have 3 fullbacks. You ideally want 4 proper fullbacks. Are we struggling up? We haven't got a number 10. is our backup, is Odebear, is that good enough for a side that's challenging on the top, four fronts that Odebear plays 25 games? Even up front, we know that Richie, who's had a fantastic start to the season, but we know the injury history. Is Don good enough to be playing 40 games for a team that's challenging on four fronts? So, and even if you were really cruel, is Donnarumma a better goalkeeper than Vicario? No, I'm not saying you'll replace Vicario, but if you're honest, you can improve every single area of the squad. Now, that would take huge money, and we're not going to make 11 signings, but every single area of that squad can be upgraded at the moment. If I look at that squad if I look at our strongest side now, and I compare it to the prime Poch side of Toby Yan, Rose Walker, prime Hugo, Ericsson, Wanyama, Moussa Dembele, Harry Kane, Heung-Min Son, there's not too many of this side gets in that side.
Agreed.
And we've got to be closer to that side than this side.
Yeah. Do you agree on that, Bill? When you're looking at the areas that we need to improve, the clock is up against us. We are, looks like, focusing on one at the moment, which I will just go round up as to where we are at the very end of this show. Are you in the same as Jason, where you're looking through that squad and you don't see one area, but you see several areas of gaps that would concern you going in to try and battle on all four fronts, which is what we're being told is the job of Thomas Frank and why they sacked Ange Postecoglou?
Yeah, I think so, especially if you consider, we're likely to get some injuries. You've got two very brilliant centre-backs, but two very injury-prone centre-backs. I'd certainly like to see a centre-back come in. And I do think, it's really, really difficult to compete on all fronts, as we mentioned earlier. Plenty of other teams have been undone by that. Like Newcastle, Aston Villa. It's only really, your very, very top teams that are able to do that across the season. So I think, for me, it has to be at least 2-3 players that come in. I don't think there's a world where we sign more than 3 players in the next few days. Let's put it that way, unfortunately. But again, I would hope that we do sign at least 3 players, because I think, we've lost Son and not replaced him. We've lost Madison Kulusevski. That's a lot of goals going out of the team as well. A lot of assists.
91 was it direct goal involvement?
Yeah, Madison's on as well. It's a lot of goals and assists going out of the team, which we haven't replaced at all yet. And the worrying thing for me is those players have been injured for a long time now. It seems like, we were young men when Madison got injured, and now we're sitting here a lot older. That's how long ago it feels like. But time is running out. One of these deals could fall through at the drop of a hat, as we've seen plenty of times this summer window, and then suddenly you're scrambling around with literally hours left to go. So I would hope that my optimism would say we can bring in 3 players. I wouldn't be surprised if we brought in less than that, unfortunately, though.
And it's not just those 3 injuries now. How many times over the last 18 months has Decky been out? How many times the last 18 months has Madison been out?
Yep.
So it's repeat, and like we're talking about Richarlison, are any of us confident Richie's going to be fit for 35, 40 games this season?
Well, I think his best return in the Premier League is what, 13, 14 goals max?
Yeah. So, it's not just the current injuries. And Mickey has a history. Romero has the history of injury problems.
Yeah. Pat, let's bring you in on that point. I asked the boys there what they think in terms of the squad and the areas that are needing to be improved. Both the boys, I agree with them both. I think there's significant areas of gaps in this squad that if we don't plug them, we've seen Tottenham have strong starts, whether it be under Conte, whether it be under Ange Postecoglou, now under Frank. But the reality is that at some point, whether it's 2 games, 4 games, 7 games, 10 games, 12 games in, the squad is unable to be able to compete on multiple fronts because it just doesn't have the ability or the quality or the depth to sustain the challenge. So where do you think, Pat, those areas are of a concern that we're going to need to address if Thomas Frank is able to be adaptable and balanced when it comes to changing that squad from a Saturday to a Tuesday, or from a Saturday to a Wednesday, or a Sunday to a Tuesday, Wednesday? Where do you see that, Pat, for you?
Yeah, I put it this way. If you look at them lot down the road, very good team, very strong, stacked, got a lot of depth. And already the season's just started and Saka's out, Havertz is out, and Odegaard is out. That's already 3 of their key players out. But because they've got depth and they've got strength in depth, they can pretty much plug those holes and they'll be able to go again. And the quality doesn't dip that much. If we were to lose 3 key players at the same time, we've already lost 2. It makes such a big impact into our squad. And when I say three, as in three that are starting right now, Kulusevski and Maddison haven't played a game this season, so we can kind of ignore them. If we were to lose three guys that started against Man City away, we'd be in big trouble. That's the problem. So for me, I'd say we need a left winger. We definitely need a number 10. I mean, we've needed him from the beginning of, the end of last season. And in an ideal world, we'd have another centre back so we can play, we've got four strong centre backs, irrespective of what happens. Kevin Danso is really good. I really like him. The jury's still out on Dragusin, if I'm being honest. I do like him, but I'm not 100% convinced. I've seen good performances, and I've seen bozo performances, like in the Europa League when he pretty much brought a guy down in the first 10 minutes, got a red card, and there's no need to do that. Let him score if he scores. We've got the whole game to get back into it. But when you foul someone, instant red card, and you're down to 10 men for the rest of the game, that was a really bad decision. But yeah, so ideally we need another centre back. And again, if the club was really ambitious and really wanted to make sure we had strength, we would also get another left wing back or left back, because I know Jed Spence plays there and he's brilliant, but he's not a left back. He's a right back. So realistically, I would want at least 4 players coming in. But like Billy said, that's unrealistic considering how long is left in the window and how long we had and we didn't plug these issues. So for me, I need at least 2. And that would be a left wing, not left wing, but that'd be a left winger and a number 10 at the very, very minimum. If we don't get that, then Levy and the board have really let down Thomas Frank, and we're shorter now than we were at the beginning of last season. Last season, we had Kulusevski, we had Son, and we had Maddison to start the season.
Yeah.
This year, we've got none of those guys. So that shows where we're lacking. And yeah, I just think that it'd be criminal to leave Frank so short-handed, especially after what we saw happen last year, and especially after our chairman has come out unprovoked, no one asked him to do it, and he's given, in-depth interviews on the overlap, and he's put out all these statements about how he sees the club and how it hurts him when we lose and how he's upset that the fans have been protesting. And I'm looking at it like, what? Is this guy living in the same planet or world that we're living in? So, you say all of that, but then when push comes to shove, and now when it's actually time to take action, he's not doing what he said he was going to do. He's not delivering on the promises he made. He says he's a fan and it hurts when we lose and it ruins his weekend, but I don't see that intent to change anything right now. So I'm with Billy, I'm with Jace. I just feel that it's a lot of hot air at the moment, and it's frustrating for us fans that are so passionate about the club, that really want to see us push on. Every time we feel we're so close, he never gives us the tools we need, and it's like, so far, but yet it's just crazy. So please just get the guys in, quality guys, and let us actually have a real go at it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But when you always leave us short, it's always the same thing, and it's always the same what ifs, and it's really frustrating because the talent is there. Our team is good. The recruitment over the last couple of years has been good. There's been a lot more hits than misses.
Yep.
That's why we're still able to compete in big games and in one-off ties. But it's the depth that really concerns me.
Yep.
Players get injured, man. Man City have had a lot of injuries. Arsenal will have injuries. Chelsea will have injuries. We'll have injuries.
We've already got, what, 4 or 5 out already?
Exactly,
We've already got 4 or 5 out already.
God forbid one of the back, the centre backs go, we're in big trouble. So fingers crossed. Obviously, none of us want to see injuries happen. We really hope that we get a bit of fortune, because we've been very unlucky over the last 2 years. So maybe this is our break. Maybe this is our moment. But we shouldn't be thinking like that as a serious club. We should be preparing for every worst eventuality.
Final question to you all guys on this topic about the Champions League. Go on,
just going to say, Rick, on that, and Patrick's right, it is the fact that he said compete on 4 fronts. I look at our squad, and if we were just talking about getting higher up the league, forget what we think of now as the big 4 and Chelsea, City, Liverpool. When you look at those squads that we've got to get in front of, you'd say Palace look weaker than this year, Brentford look weaker than last year, Bournemouth look weaker than last year, Villa look weaker than last year, Newcastle, who knows what they're going to do in the last couple of days. Brighton don't look as strong as they did last year. Fulham haven't signed anyone. So West Ham are having a shocking window. So, if you looked at us in just the terms of the Premier League, I'd have every hope that we could certainly finish no worse than 6th on it. But we know we will want to compete in those other trophies, at least 2 of those cup competitions.
Agree.
And let's be honest, we've just tasted silverware,
Yeah.
and we don't want to be going out the Carabao Cup in round 4 because we make 8 or 9 changes and you draw. I don't know. You've got Wolves away in that round, and we want to still take a side to Wolves and think we'll win this game. We'll win this game, rather than thinking, damn, here comes players with 5 youth team players and things like that in it.
Yeah. Well, even when you look at the fixtures now, I mean, again, it's at this stage they can be subject to change, but already you think to yourself, Wolves at home, then you've got Champions League game, then you've got Leeds away. I mean, Leeds away, Ellen Road, Jace, it's like that. These kind of games are not easy games, are they, to navigate?
Yeah, and they won't change that much. You might get a TV game that becomes Saturday into Sunday, but it's not suddenly going to move by 4 months, one of those fixtures. So, and let's be honest, when you're at that stage, if you move a Saturday to a Sunday, you think, great, we've got 4 days to prepare for it rather than 3 days. But then you're also then 1 day short the other end of the week, aren't you? When your next game is suddenly you're playing Sunday, Wednesday, not Saturday, Wednesday. So, it swings and roundabouts on that. Even though they move around, you've still got the same number of fixtures in the same actual number of days.
Yeah. Look, it's going to be, again, really fascinating to see how Tottenham do get on. Final question to you, if you don't mind. Bill, I'll start with you. Now you've seen the opening phase of what is up against Tottenham, what they're ahead of for their schedule. How far do you generally think we can go in this Champions League for you now on the back of seeing that opening phase of games?
I would hope us to progress into the knockout competition, and then from there on, it's a lottery depending on who you get, really. But I think we've got a really decent chance of getting us in, even into that top 8, maybe. And then from there, you've probably hopefully got a favourable draw. But I think it's difficult to predict where you go from the knockout stages, just because we could literally end up with anyone. So I would hope with this draw we should be able to get into the knockout stages, which I think would be a fantastic return, considering we finished 17th in the league last season.
Yep. I'll ask Jace the same, and I'll close with Pat. Jace, for you. You look at those first opening 8 games and what's to come, and I know you, bless you, wanted more glamour-tised, but gut feeling for you, how far can this team go? Can this manager go in the Champions League?
Well, I think, like Bill, I would certainly hope to be in the top 16. So you're definitely in the playoff round, and then and possibly into the top 8. But the only way you guarantee a top 8 is 6 wins. So there's not much margin for error in that. Like I say, 5 wins doesn't guarantee you a top 8 spot. So if you get into the playoff rounds, and then, when you look at last year's playoff round, if you have got a Brest or a Celtic or someone like that, you think, right, there's a great chance. If you'd have pulled out a Juve or a Man City, you're up in the air about it, aren't you? So if we got to a quarter final, I think that'd be an astonishing season for us at this stage of where we are as a club. Let's be honest, who picked us to get to a final?
Yeah, agreed. Especially, I do agree at that time, given what we had against us. Pat, let's close with you, Pat. Your thoughts in terms of that draw. What's your feelings now?
It's a brilliant draw. I'm really happy with it. Like I said, we have to respect every single team we play against, but you couldn't have asked for a more favourable set of fixtures. You've got 2 biggies in there, as in Dortmund and PSG, and the rest of the guys I expect us to beat, if I'm being honest. It's as simple as that. That's no disrespect to them, but that's how I view our team, and we should go into that. We as fans should go in, and so should the players, especially after winning and becoming European champions. They should go into these games licking their lips and wanting to put a marker down. So I expect the last 16, and then like Billy said, it just depends on who we get. We could do well, qualify in the top 8, and maybe, I don't know, Bayern or PSG or even Man City have a stinker. They have to qualify and we get drawn with them. And then it's just luck of the draw and who's the best team on the day. But last 16 at least, and then you just take it game by game. It's a cliche, but it's the truth.
Pat, thank you so much. Boys, we have got hopefully a lot to look forward to, but we know it all comes down to these final few days to give Thomas Frank the tools to be able to make this a successful window and give Spurs the best possible chance, as what the board have said they are going to do, or want the manager to do, is fight on all 4 fronts. Pat, thank you so much. We're going to see you back with me after Bournemouth. But make sure, again, Pat on YouTube at Patrick Tyrant. Please make sure you go and give that a like and subscribe. Regular content. He's promised coming back your way. You'll see him early on the Saturday morning with me, hopefully, fingers crossed. Jace is also going to be in attendance. Jace, we'll see you on Saturday as well. In terms of at the game, if you're going to go see Jace at the game, make sure you go and say hello. Make sure you ask him for a picture. He loves a picture, he does. And of course, Billie T. Bill is going to be with us for a lot of this week. We've got a big show later. We're doing with Ben Jacobs in terms of the transfer window. Bill will be back with us later tonight to dissect where that leaves us and will we get a bomber later on. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Don't leave no stone unturned, guys. Question him, quiz him. I want answers.
Grill
I
him,
want to know
grill
what's
him,
going
grill
on.
him.
Yeah, grill him.
Don't let him out the room with at least one over the line, Pat, yeah? Don't let him out the room with at least one over the line. Listen, from Jace, from Pat, from Bill, we've been the last word on Spurs. Thanks to the over 15,500 that are watching us live. I cannot thank you enough, guys. Over 1 million views in this last month. You guys' support has been absolutely incredible. Bill, thank you so much.
That's more than the capacity of Bodo Glimt Stadium. So there you go.
There you go. At least we're breaking some records at the moment. Might be not in the market, but at least we are on here. From Jace, from Bill, from Pat, from me, we've been the last one on Spurs. Thank you so much for all your incredible support. We're back with you a bit later on for that transfer special. And as always, come on you Spurs.